Okay, our session's being recorded. First, let me say welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody to the adventure into the MSDA program. The world of analytics, as I'm sure you're aware, is exciting, changing, dynamic, lucrative, challenging, interesting. All kinds of adjectives go with it. Suffice it to say, we're having fun teaching it, those of us involved, and I'm one of the ones who did help put it together. We started 4 years ago with 14 students. We now have about 350. And we've graduated about 6 classes. You know, it's a 2-year program, and they're doing well. We've also had some nice kudos in the sense of students doing well in either competitions or other excellent opportunities, all of which helps contribute to the feeling that we think we're on the right track. We update the program every semester. So some of the things you'll be doing are new, and some of the things that, you know, as they become new and as they become interesting and hot, such things as deep learning, cognitive computing, and all like that. And you'll run into all of these things. Our overall goal, for those of you who remember perhaps attending one of the open houses, our overall goal is to have you graduate with a mastery of the subject matter. And we are sort of tool agnostic. We like to show several tools. We like to give people a full flavor because you don't know what you're going to run into when you go out into the real world. We also recognize that we have usually 2 different kinds of folks in our program. Some may already be in the world of analytics and would like to add a credential and progress, get promoted. Others may be making a career change, and it's an ideal opportunity for either of those approaches. We have about anywhere, depending on the estimates, anywhere from 750,000 to 1.5 million job openings right now for data scientists, data analysts. And the salaries are very good. Most of them anywhere from 100,000 and up. So it's a very good opportunity. Now, there's also a challenge. You know, the world of data is growing rapidly, and the world of data techniques is changing rapidly. The demands from management, many of whom are not analytically inclined to know the so what aspect, not just the what, is growing. So we've tailored our program to be that way. So without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen. I've got all of you turned on to mute. You'll have an opportunity when we finish if you'd like to ask questions. But this is just to get you comfortable, get you started. By now, hopefully, you've waded into your classroom and have taken a look perhaps at the syllabus, and so I think you should be, you know, getting to the point where that's becoming. Let me move some of the stuff out of the way here. Okay, hopefully you're seeing my screen now. It says Data610 Course Overview, and I'm going to say a little bit about the course, enough to get you started. Okay, here's my agenda. I always like to have an agenda. A little bit about introductions, outline of the seminar, something about grading. That's always important. Some of you may have recently been in college and graduate school even. Others may be coming back after a hiatus. In either case, important to know the ground rules for each side in terms of the program so that we get that part out of the way easily. Then it's just a matter of doing the hard work. So miscellaneous office hours, a little bit about week 1. Introductions. You'll note when you get into the classroom, there's a place to post a little bio if you'd like. It does help the professors teaching the course if they have a little understanding of the backgrounds of the students in the program. Sometimes we can add to that. We can add additional information for, you know, fleshing out lessons and things like that, and try to keep that up to date. Now, the most important thing you can do is make very sure that the email address that shows up in Leo is the email address you wish to use. Excuse me, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold here in the summer. Faculty do email students often with specific things they might want or need. So you want to make sure your email address is right. And then if you have something else you'd just like to say about your interests, in addition to your bio, feel free to do that too. So that just helps get people acquainted. You know, it's a little difficult. Some of you may not have done online education before. We think we do a very good job with that because we have been doing it a long time. We're using great software, such as we're using tonight, WebEx, and so forth. So we think that part works well. Outline of the course. Okay. The first course, Data610, focuses on a couple of things. Focuses on decision making and analytics. When we put this program together, our board of visitors, our people helping advise us, of course, excuse me, let me go back 1 second to the screen here, make sure that we're okay. I saw a little message there, just a second. Okay, I think we're good. Let me get back to my PowerPoint. Okay, as I said, when we put this course together, we wanted to make sure that we took into consideration what the key aspect of analytics is. All of our board of visitors, the people helping us design the program, said repeatedly, analytics is fun, especially for you guys and gals who like doing quantitative things and like doing math and so forth. But the bottom line is, how does it impact the organization? How does it improve the decision making in the organization? How does it improve the operation of the organization? So we have taken that strongly under consideration and focused that heavily in our courses. So it's not just the what of analytics, it's also what we call the so what. Once you finish with an analytics project, you've then got to explain that to the real decision makers, who by and large aren't the analysts. They're, as you know, the people who may not have much of an analytic background, but who make the decisions. So you've got to be able to, quote, tell the story, unquote. And you'll hear that phrase used many times throughout the program. So our first course focuses heavily on decision-making and analytics. We used to use a book by Tom Davenport. You'll hear a lot of names in the next 2 years in this program. These are key people to remember. One of the most interesting and most insightful and most impactful people in the world of analytics is Dr. Tom Davenport. He's written several books, Keeping Up with the Quants and so forth, and he is one of the gurus in the world of analytics. One of his earlier books, Keeping Up with Your Quants, gave us the outline for our program, really, because we have focused on the three aspects he mentioned and highlighted in that book: framing a decision, analyzing a decision, implementing a decision. Framing, analyzing, implementing. Very, very important. So this first course focuses on that. We start with framing a decision. What is the decision to be made? You know, if you just wander in, we have enough experience now with the world of analytics to know that if you just wander in and say, I'm just going to go look at the data and mess around with it and see what I find, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to have a specific focus. Somebody says, we want to do a better job of modeling fraudulent transactions. We want to model churn. We want to explore our data to see how many people quit after 6 months, et cetera, et cetera. A very specific, focused purpose. So that's part of framing, and you'll get a lot of information and aspects and opportunities to try that early on in the course. Then you have to do the analysis. You have to analyze the decision. Maybe it's data exploration. Maybe it's using some statistical techniques. Maybe it's using some predictive models. Maybe it's analyzing big data for trends. It depends, and you'll get a lot of that throughout the program. And then finally, we have to be able to take the decision that's made or the information that we find in the analysis and recommend something to be done differently. Again, that's the so what factor. How do I make use of what I found in doing my day-to-day operations? What can I expect? What else could I have done? What did I leave out? What can I do better next time? All of that is part of implementing. So framing, analyzing, implementing are the three themes of this first course, and they're very important themes. Secondly, I want to remind those of you who may not have heard this yet, but this is a competency-based program. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means we don't ask you to critique articles. We don't ask you to view and comment on case studies. We ask you to do things. You are graded in every assignment. In every assignment, you're graded on what you can do, not what you know. Now, of course, you have to know things to do things, so I understand that. But you're not going to be taking exams. You're not going to be critiquing articles or case studies. You might be reading those because they do complement things and help flesh out the concepts. But you will be doing things. Now, what this means is that the assignments are fewer in number, because when you're doing assignments that are project-based or competency-based, you have to have some time. You have to have time to learn the software and play with it. You have to have time to think about and frame the decision, do the decision, et cetera, et cetera. So we understand that means you can't be turning something in every single week. So you will notice, if you looked at the syllabus, that the assignments are not every single week. There's something to do every single week, whether it's a discussion or an activity, but not a graded assignment. there are fewer of those. So over a 12-week course, there are 5 graded assignments. Actually 6, but I'll mention the 6th one in just a minute. The weeks between those graded assignments are activities, which add information, let you learn about software. For example, the first software package you're going to use in this course is something called Decisions First. And I will guarantee none of you have ever used that before. Somebody's got their mic on. Please mute your mic, whoever has joined. Thank you. So I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. So the key, of course, as we mentioned every time we had an open house, and I'll reiterate here, the key is to make sure that you can find the 15 or so hours per week you need to do the course properly. Now that means doing the required readings, participating in the discussions, doing the assignments or activities. If you put that kind of time in, you will be very successful. The people who have trouble with the entire program are those who simply can't find the time. And I understand that many of you, most of you, hopefully, are working, have families, have other obligations. Your faculty will work with you on any kind of exigencies and emergencies, but you've got to be very dedicated in putting aside those 15 to 20 hours per week. Okay, so that's what happens during the course. Now, your instructors are there to assist you. Every section, and we have 4 sections this semester, which is good, has a primary faculty member, and you should know who that is and his or her address. And it also has a teaching assistant. You should know the addresses for both. The teaching assistant is designed to help with technical problems, software problems, things like that. The teaching assistant does none of the grading. The faculty, primary faculty will do all of the grading. But the teaching assistant assists and takes care of many of the technical kinds of problems. So they're very well trained in the software. Many of them are, in fact, graduates of our program who have done very well. So it's an excellent opportunity. We do use 2 hands-on software packages in this program. So we want to get you started because analytics is hands-on. You don't wave your arms and pontificate too much. You do projects, as I said. You present projects. Oh, and by the way, one of the advantages of a competency-based program is that if you start from day one keeping a portfolio of every assignment you do, by the time you graduate in 2 years, you will have a very impressive array of things you have done to show any current or future employer. You can say, I've done a predictive model. I've used Watson Analytics. I've used Python, R, Hadoop. I've done these things. Let me show you what I did. And students have come back and said that is a great, great thing to emphasize. So I want to point that out. So let me talk a little bit about the 2 software packages. I love them because I think they do exactly what we want to do. You know, Decisions First, as I said, is a package I'm sure none of you have ever used. It's a very small company. For years, I've taught courses in decision making. I've taught courses in artificial intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. Always look for something that would help frame a decision. And there are various packages out there. I think Decision First is the best I've ever seen. It is designed to do one thing and one thing well, and that is to fully frame the decision. If you recall, that's the first step in our 3-step process, frame the decision. So you're going to spend the first 2 or 3 weeks using Decision First and framing a problem. I want to point out that our software in this program is cloud-based, which is the way everything's being done these days, so you get used to that environment. You will be provided a password and access to the Decisions First software this week. I will also mention that on Friday of this week, I will be doing a demo walkthrough of the software. And of course, that will be recorded for anyone who can't make it, because I understand people have other obligations. So Decisions First, very interesting package. Does one thing well. It doesn't do analytics. You can't build a regression model with Decisions First. You can't do any real data exploration. But what you can do is frame the decision. What is it? Who's going to do it? What pieces do I need? What subjective pieces do I need? Where am I going to get those? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's really a nice piece of software for that purpose. The second software package we use is something called Watson Analytics from IBM. Watson Analytics has been around for 2 or 3 years, got well over 1 million users. It is a good entry-level analytics package. It does several things well. It lets you explore data extremely well and extremely easily. It builds automatically, and this is one of the keys, it builds automatically the 10, well, it'll build as many as you want, but it starts with 10 key questions you should ask about your data. In other words, think about this. You give Watson Analytics a data set, and it comes back and says, here are the most interesting questions about that data set. That's pretty impressive. It's based on the IBM natural language processing capabilities that are part and parcel of the bigger package called Watson that some of you, hopefully all of you, have seen in action when it won the Jeopardy contest in 2011. If not, go back and look at that on YouTube. So we have a piece of Watson in this program. We have Watson Analytics. It helps end users utilize analytics. Your organizations may find great use for Watson Analytics. Again, at the appropriate time, which starts in week 4 and beyond, you will gain access to this program. You'll have walkthroughs, you'll have tutorials, you'll have demos, as you will for all of the programs, both programs. I want to point out that, well, let me go back and say a couple words about Watson Analytics. We have, for the last 3 years, IBM has sponsored a worldwide competition for student teams using Watson Analytics. They give you a problem. It was an environmental problem this year, and they ask you to do something with Watson Analytics, find your own data, formulate your problem, which is framing, analyze it using Watson Analytics, present your findings, create a video of your findings, create a dashboard with your findings. We entered 2 teams, volunteers working extra on their own work, no credit, just extra work. They wanted to do it. We had 2 teams. I coached one, and Yelena Bytenskova and Dr. Gorcheva coached the other one. There were over 225 teams entered worldwide from every university you could possibly think of. Our 2 teams finished 1st and 3rd, so I think that's quite impressive, and IBM's very pleased with that. The year before, we entered 2 teams, and one of them finished 2nd. So we've done quite well in our 2 years of being involved in the contest. That's just an aside. We've had students win other things, Kaggle competitions, etc., and you'll hear more about that as the program unfolds. But we have success stories. Okay, so Watson Analytics is a great entry-level program. It has tremendous power. It helps build dashboards right away. It's got some interesting features. It does several things well. It's your first program that you'll use in the program to do analytics. Now, what are the assignments? Well, here are the 5 or the 6 graded assignments. There's actually one additional one, but don't worry about that yet. And here's when they're due. And as you can see, they're spaced out about every other week because, again, you need those off weeks to practice with the software, to experiment, to try things, to tweak things, etc. Okay? So your first assignment's due week 3, and that's the one assignment you will do using Decisions for software. The next assignments all use Watson Analytics. Week 5, you'll do data refinement, analysis, and cleansing with Watson Analytics. We'll give you some data sets, but you can use others. In week 7, you will have an assignment due, which lets you use Watson Analytics to build a predictive model. Predictive model says, let me take past data, figure out what happened, and see if I can predict what's likely to happen in the future. Watson Analytics will do some of that. Some of that. In week 9, you will build a dashboard using Watson Analytics. Very impressive dashboard that you can ask questions to, etc. And then in week 12, the last assignment of the major assignments, you'll be put into teams, small teams of 3 or 4, and you'll be asked to do a larger project using all of the features of Watson Analytics. I also want to mention that a small portion of your grade for the course is based on your discussion contributions. We view the discussion contributions as being very important. You know, when we put something out like, have you ever done data exploration in your organization? We want people to contribute success stories, problems, maybe talk about some of the cultural barriers or whatever. We want to hear about that because that way you're exchanging views and it helps us understand what's going on in your organization. It also helps your classmates understand what the sort of state of the art is. So the discussions are important, and you should endeavor to contribute to those each and every week. It helps provide some interactivity to the course. It helps keep things fresh. Your faculty will also be providing you with additional interesting things as they occur. You know, there's stuff occurring every day in the world of analytics, so look in that announcements section often as well. So there's a little bit on the discussion items. As I said, they're designed to give you the opportunity to put your 2 cents in, supported by some kind of rationale, hopefully. But, you know, if you've done something interesting, if your organization has tried something and it didn't work, what are the barriers? Why isn't every organization jumping wholeheartedly into analytics? Most of them are, but some are just putting their foot in the water a little bit and wading in just a little bit. So it's important to try to get inside that, because you, once you finish this program, are probably going to be the change agent to make that happen. You're going to be the one to have to lead the charge in your organization to say, let's make this a more evidence-based organization. Evidence-based organization. In fact, in that first week, you'll see some recorded lectures that talk about the problems with using intuition. Intuition is a very poor way to go. We still have mostly organizations run by people in their 50s and 60s who did not grow up using computers, did not grow up using analytics. So they rely on experience, they rely on hunch, they rely on intuition. That's fine if you have a very small amount of data and a very slow-moving environment. When you have a fast-changing environment, when you have large amounts of data, you need to move to a more evidence-based decision process. And this is designed to help you with that. Okay. There's a couple of ungraded assignments, although I have to hedge and say that we've decided to make this bottom one graded. Let me talk about that in a minute. First of all, there's something called the Academic Integrity Pledge. Every course, at the start of every course in this program, you will be asked to complete a very short Academic Integrity Pledge. You must complete that, post it in the designated assignment area for that. It's ungraded, but you're not going to get a grade on any assignment until you do complete that. It's basically a short little statement you copy and paste that says, everything I do in this program is my work and my work only. The second thing, which used to be ungraded, but now has a very small piece of the grade, it has 3 points out of the whole course, 3 points out of the whole course, is a practice exercise using Watson Analytics. We want to ensure that before you get to any graded assignments using Watson Analytics, you are conversant in Watson Analytics. Any new software has an immediate fog factor. When you first see it, you say, what is this? And then as the fog unfolds or lifts, you begin to see the value. We will walk you through that. We will give you tutorials. We will give you numerous links. But we also want you to try a very small problem that our teaching assistant, Yelena Batenskova, has designed. And so we're going to give 3 points of the entire course, 100 points, 100% based on this assignment. We took it off the last assignment, changed it from being worth 20 points to being worth 17 points, and this one's worth 3. So although it says ungraded, it's really, it is now graded. We've decided to make that graded, just to make sure that everybody says they've at least tried Watson Analytics. There are required readings each week. But remember, you do not have to buy any textbooks. These are all what we call open educational resources, OERs, that we have found. They're just as good as a textbook, and they don't cost you a thing. Just like the software doesn't cost you anything, the textbooks don't cost you anything. One of the real values of the program here, and we've been delighted as how well that's worked out. In addition, your faculty will often provide you with additional information. Or if you say, I'd like to know more about this, email your faculty or post something in your faculty discussion area and say, I'd like to know more about this. We've got tons of stuff we can give you. We try to keep the required readings down to a reasonable level because we also want you to then take what you've learned from the readings and the videos that are required to watch and start using and applying the software. But we can give you many more readings and links if you'd like. Now, you have a syllabus. You also have something called the weekly weekly guidance for the lesson. The guidance is updated more frequently than the syllabus, so please pay attention to that. It should occur in your classroom each week by Sunday, because the week starts Monday and you have a week to do something with that lesson. Sometimes it's just doing a discussion, but you certainly want to do the readings. And what we recommend to people is go take a look at that as soon as it shows up. Maybe you don't have time on that Sunday or Saturday when it shows up to do anything with it, but you at least need to know what the outline is for the week so that you can budget your time, because you're going to have something due many of the following weekends, because, you know, there's weeks where assignments are due. So check the announcement section often. Daily would be ideal. You know, one of the things we fight for in this program, of course, is your time and attention. So, you know, the announcement section often has very interesting things, updates. So we want you to check that often. And so that's one way to entice that, is by putting interesting information and important information in the announcements. All right, so what about grading? Well, grading is based on the course assignments, of course, which includes a small piece for the discussions. the graduate school policy will be applied, which says if you do the work on time, on task, that means you addressed each of the specific tasks that are outlined in the course assignments well, you get something around an 80 to an 85, a solid B. You do not get an A just by addressing all the tasks and doing it on time. And of course, that means properly referenced, no typos, misspelled words, etc. So if you want to do better than that, if you say, well, I really want to get an A, you're going to have to find a way to add significant evidence of critical thinking to your assignments. Now, you say, well, what the heck is that? Depends on the assignment, of course, but maybe if you were asked to build a model, a predictive model based on a data set, you build 4 predictive models and compare and contrast them. You build 10 predictive models, compare and contrast them. You use a more complex data set. There's a lot of ways of doing this. You know, we know it when we see it. You either add depth or breadth. You're more thorough. You present alternative viewpoints and support them. You present examples to back you up. In other words, those are all ways to evidence critical thinking, and that will increase your chances, not guarantee, increase your chances of getting a higher grade. But remember, B is a good grade. B is the average grade. If you get all Bs in the program, guess what? You graduate, and you get an MSDA, Master of Science in Data Analytics. Now, of course, the faculty attempt to be as fair as possible. If you have pushback, certainly get in touch with them. If you think they missed something, they incorrectly interpreted something, they're quite willing to discuss that with you and explain their rationale. We always are open door for that aspect. Okay, so miscellaneous. Reminder to read the announcements often. There's also places to post some questions in the discussions area. In other words, in addition to the discussion topic du jour or for the week, there are other places. There's one called Let Me Have Any Questions. If you have a question and you think the answer to that question would benefit everyone in the class, that's a good place to put it because everyone sees the discussion items. And so if a question is relevant for everybody, put it there. That way everybody sees it. Maybe you found a typo. Maybe you found a better link. Maybe you found a new link that's even better than the one we had. Fine, put it there. And that way people will see that and say, aha. If it's something that pertains just to you, then, of course, you can email your faculty member. And, of course, if it's an emergency, you can call them. All faculty try to answer and respond to every question within 24 hours. That's our goal. Office hours. So, as I said, there's going to be a weekly lesson guidance that shows up every Sunday. At least in my classes, I post it either late Saturday or early Sunday. People want to do some work on the weekend sometimes. What's in that? Well, first of all, it's an overview of the week's lesson, brief overview. It's got lecture material. For example, if you go look at week 1, which is now available to you or should be, this is the beginning of week 1, you will see a couple of video lectures in there about some of the problems with intuitive decision making, an overview of analytics, etc. So you want to be sure to watch those. You want to be sure to start on the readings. Again, software walkthroughs will be available. As I said, I'll be doing one Friday. And there's some links available where you can look earlier if you want to see what Decisions First is all about. Mr. Taylor, the owner of the company, has his own walkthrough. And, of course, you can post questions. So what do you need to do? Again, view the material for the week as early as possible so you can plan your week. I'm not saying you have to do all your work. It's the Sunday that it comes up, but you certainly want to plan the week so that you have that 15 hours that we think it takes to do the lesson properly. Ask questions. If you're confused, if you're befuddled, if something's not clear, please ask questions. It's one of the things we need to have as much of as possible to keep things clear. Okay, upcoming weeks, 1 and 2. Get you started? Well, week 1, you're going to start right away jumping into learning a little bit about the past readings and literature and studies about decision-making and why intuitive decision-making is not the way to go, simply because our cognitive limitations. We have severe cognitive limitations. We can handle a very small amount of data, but when data becomes large, becomes subjective, it becomes multiplexed, we really can't. You could buy a used car if all you had to worry about was price or color. You can't buy a used car if you have to worry about price, color, financing, safety, warranties, etc., you do get confused. So that's where we start you off. Again, you want to get into the Decisions First software as soon as you can so that you can learn that. In fact, here's a link if you want to go watch this. This is a great overview tutorial that Mr. Taylor does that'll walk you through the software. My tutorial will be simpler, similar, and simpler, and more from a student's perspective. And then week 2, you'll be, the start of week 2, you certainly want to be heavily into the Decisions First. You want to be looking at all of the many, many, many tutorials and videos he has out there. And you want to start thinking about your first assignment. Okay, now let me go back to the main website. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, I think, if I can get to it. Where is it? Stop sharing. And I will see if there are any questions here that people have. If you do, you want to post them in the chat room, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and talk, you can do that. We want to make sure there aren't administrative problems. Again, I'm not delivering any real content material here tonight. That's in the classroom in the form of recordings. I think there's a recording virtually every week, lecture material and so forth. So you want to be sure to look at those. But this is to make sure everybody's on the right page. Everybody's logged into their website for the course. You're familiar with what's there. You've looked at the syllabus, etc. So I will stop and see if there are any questions. If there are, you can again type them in the chat room, or you can unmute yourself and ask. Where is the pledge document? Okay, that should be in your classroom. There should be something called the Academic Integrity Pledge. It's just one paragraph. You copy, paste that into a Word document, and submit that in the assignments area. If it's missing, email your faculty member and say, where is that? That should be there. It's in every course. It's one of the first things you have to do. I put mine in the discussions area, but I'm not sure what each faculty member does, so you'll have to ask your faculty member. I teach 640. I design 640 and teach 640 and 670, the capstone, and I design 610 and sometimes teach 610, but not this semester. So I can't tell you where it is in 610 at the moment. It's there, where it should be. I would like to know if you can still have a chance to better your grade even after grading. I would say that's up to the faculty member. Rarely would that happen unless they miss something. I have had students in courses where, I grade their paper and I miss something. And they say, did you see what I put in the footnote, or did you see what I had on page 6? Were you clear about that? And of course, quite honestly, that requires regrading. In terms of doing something, if you get a grade and say, I'd like to redo that, that is rare because the course moves so quickly. Remember, we're giving you 6, we're not giving, you are achieving 6 graduate credits in a 12-week course. That's double what you normally get. So the course moves so quickly that there's really not time to go back and redo anything. So, each assignment has some very carefully and detailed laid out tasks that need to be addressed. And so I think if you'd like to get a higher grade, be sure to address each task fully, obviously, and try to add some critical thinking aspects to it. That's general guidance, but that works. Many people are posting their academic integrity statement signed in the discussions area rather than the assignments area. Thank you for that. In my courses, I make it pretty clear I want that in the assignments area. You can post it both places. It's not going to hurt anything. Not going to cost you any credit. But I would think most faculty would want that posted as an assignment. It's an ungraded assignment, but it's much easier to keep track of everything if it's in the assignments area vice the discussions area. So thank you for that point. Okay. Those are good questions. Again, the whole purpose of this is to make you feel comfortable. We are here to answer questions. We are here to guide you through this. And I can honestly say, being as honest as I can, we have had a tremendous success rate in our program. Tremendous success rate. And as I said before, I find the only people who struggle are the people who can't find the time to put in the effort. It's, we've got great tutorials, we've got great faculty, we've got great ways to help you with everything, but you do need to spend the time. You can't just absorb this without spending some time. Somebody took charge of my screen, it looks like, or something. uh, Megan, I think you got the presenter's ball. I'm going to grab it back. It's supposed to stay with me, but I don't know how you did that. That happens. Uh, this software we're using is called WebEx. It's great for sharing screens and having discussions. That's okay, Megan. It's a simple, until you get used to the software, it works fine. So I'm hoping that every one of you gets off to a great start. We've got, again, 4 sections. We've got our best 4 faculty members teaching them. They're excellent. They're all well-trained. None of them are newbies. They're all out there practicing or teaching analytics, so they know their stuff. So the key is for you to ask and inquire whenever you run into any difficulty. I see a question. How do you participate in the competitions that you mentioned? Okay, there's a couple of ways. As I said, for the last 3 years, IBM has sponsored a worldwide Watson Analytics competition for student teams. And that was done between January and March of each year. So around that time, we start asking for volunteers. We were pleasantly surprised that we had quite a few people who wanted to do that, because we told them it's going to take 5-6 hours per week for that full 3-month period, in addition to whatever else you're doing, to really do a good job. And we were hoping to have people that would put the effort in and maybe finish in the top 10. We were delighted that we finished 1st and 3rd this year and 2nd the previous year. That's only 2 years we've entered teams. So if you're real interested in that aspect of the competition, we will be likely, assuming IBM continues the march on that, which I think they will, we'll be likely soliciting volunteers sometime in December, trying to organize teams of 3 or at most 3 or 4. The winning teams, by the way, if you made the final 10, you got to go to Shanghai, China, where the IBM conference was, and present your paper live or your project live. And that was part of the grading process to get from the final 10 down to the winners. We also have had people win Kaggle competitions. Now, Kaggle competitions, and I don't want to belabor the point because this is going to overwhelm a lot of people, are competitions. If you go to Kaggle.com, there are competitions there for real money. And we have students, mostly by the time they get to Data 640 and 650, the more advanced 630, 40, and 50 are where the heavy lifting takes place for building predictive models. Most of the Kaggle competitions are, in fact, predictive model competitions, and you need to have some pretty good understanding of many of the complex predictive models. That's where our students go in and attempt those. And again, that's all volunteer work, but they finished 1st and 2nd in one, and 1st and 3rd in another. They've done remarkable work. So we're very pleased about that. How long are you allowed to keep the software packages to practice even after the class? That is a great question. Thank you. I should have mentioned that. All of the software available to you in this program is available to you until the day you graduate. Okay? So anything you're using in this course or any of the subsequent courses is available to you through Data 670. Since I teach the capstone course and help design it, I have students who are, in fact, still using Decisions First. They're using Watson Analytics. They're using all of the other programs, Python, R. They're using SAS. They're using Hadoop. They're using whatever they deem appropriate when they get to their capstone project. But first things first, just do well in 610. But they're all available to you, so that's good. And they're all free. Remember, almost all of them are cloud-based. R you have to download onto your computer, but everything else is pretty much cloud-based, which is the way the world is moving. Cloud-based, 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 to make use of the tremendous assets that are out there in the cloud. I mean, when you do deep learning where you need multiple processors, you're not going to do it on your desktop. So you have to have a cloud-based approach. But don't worry about that yet. Good questions. Thank you. It looks like we have a very interesting group. I'm delighted that we have 4 sections. That's a good sign. As I said, we add new things. We revise things each and every semester. So it keeps our excitement up. And I can honestly speak for all the faculty. We really enjoy what we do because this is fun stuff for us. I have a bachelor's in math, a master's in business, and a doctorate in ops research. So for me, combining decision making and analytics is just absolutely perfect key to keep me happy. Okay. Well, I don't see other questions showing up, so I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Remember, this recording will... Oh, one more question. Okay, sure. This recording will be available in your classrooms if you want to go back and review it, or those who, of course, weren't able to attend live. We don't require ever anyone to attend live because we have people in time zones all across the country. We even have international students. So it would be onerous for them to say we got to show up at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock on a certain night, a certain time. So we record everything. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try to be here live because, again, I might not have thought of the questions that are being asked. So that helps me stay on track. And, again, I'll be doing the Decisions First walkthrough on Friday. But you might want to look at Mr. Taylor's walkthrough in advance. That will give you a good feel for what's in the program. I know you mentioned this is not a competency program, if I'm right. No, this is a competency program. All of our assignments are competency-based. I thought I made that clear, meaning they're all projects. They're all competency. You're not going to be asked to critique a paper. You're not going to be asked to take an exam. You're not going to be asked to look at an article and decide what's good and bad about it. You're going to be asked to do things, starting with decisions first. That's why there's a lot of software in each program. So we call those competencies. We expect you to be able to evidence that you've mastered those competencies as part of your grade. Okay? So it is a competency-based. We feel like, if you're going to graduate and go see an employer and say, I know a lot of stuff about analytics, the employer's going to say, that's just great, but what can you actually do? And that's when you pull out your portfolio and say, let me show you the many assignments, the competency-based projects that I have done in my master's degree. We feel that's one of the real values of this program. You can say, I built this with Watson Analytics. I did this with Python. I used R to build a predictive model. I know all about the SAS Enterprise Miner. I know how to build regression models. I know how to build models using artificial intelligence. I built a chatbot. All of these things are in our program. We want you to leave with a real nice, rich portfolio of competencies and a real understanding of several software programs because we don't know which one you're going to run into. And we change our mix depending on what ebbs and flows. Something gets hot and comes along. We added deep learning 2 semesters ago. We added cognitive computing about 1 semester ago. Those are hot subjects right now. Is there a practice quiz to help evaluate or assess ourselves? Well, the activities you do during the weeks when you don't have assignments, you're basically seeing if you can get the software to work, and you can always ask your faculty member or your TA to take a look at what you've done, but we don't really have assessment tools to assess yourself. There are going to be plenty of help. There's going to be tons of walkthroughs, tutorials, demos, everything there is to help you understand the software. And then each week, remember, in the classroom, there are lectures on the content. So we will make sure that nothing is confusing or obfuscating to you. If you're enrolled in the program, and of course you are, you wouldn't be here tonight, you have the basics that you need to be successful. Remember, there were some entry requirements in the MSDA. In addition to a bachelor's degree, you had to have some evidence that you had some math background, not extreme amount. Oh, the good news about the math, by the way, if you're concerned about that, is that the software does all the calculations for you. I'm an old school guy, and I had to do them by hand many years ago. Try doing a regression model by hand. It's painful. But now that we have computers that do all that for you, your focus is on understanding what's going on and explaining what's going on and talking about the relevance, the so what factor of what's going on. In other words, telling the story is much more an important aspect of a data scientist today than being able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, because the software does that for you. Thank goodness. Okay, well, I don't want to keep people around for no reason. You feel free to leave. I'm going to stop the recording, and that means it will be available. I will send the